Hi, and welcome to Comac Talks. We're talking talent retention today. How can you keep the best employees you have within your organization so they can stay with you and serve you and work with you and for you instead of somebody else who's just gonna lock into them? Did you know that 1/3 of the employees that left their job in Canada did it because of a bad boss? They were willing to leave sometimes the very good situations behind because somebody with a toxic personality was in their way. So what does that mean? It means that there's a lot of people out there that you could have kept, but left your company because of one, maybe or two people. So how can you retain talent? We're going to dive into that today. And we're going to start with something that might sound very simple, but let's not take it for granted. Is that you have to know who your good employees are, who your exceptional contributors are. Good for you if you already know who they are. And if you don't, well, you have to identify them. How can you? Well, look at the last yearly evaluations. A good employee is good sometimes. An excellent employee is good all the time. So those people, those talent, you look at the last 2, 5, 10 evaluations, yearly evaluations, if they've been there that long, have a good enough sample in size. But if you find those people that were good year in and year out, well, those are your gold mines. Those are the people you should pay attention to because they're the ones driving the show, whether they look like it or not. And sometimes they don't look like it. They're the most introvert people. They're the soft-spoken one. They don't speak during meetings. They don't like to be put on the spot. They're shy sometimes, but they're the ones that are doing the job. You can also ask around. Say, hey, ask the people that work with them and for them. And if the majority of people say one thing, and you have a good enough and a big enough sample size, it's usually the truth. Try and ask different kind of people from different parts of that department or the company, if even possible, because great employees travel beyond, departments. Somehow they're known beyond the borders. That's how great they are. So validate. And once you know who they are and you identify them, then you have to talk to them. Talk to them one by one. You want to put them in a room, do it one by one. It's usually the most successful approach. Ask them what they think about how the department is being run. Ask them what we should start doing, what we should continue doing, what we should stop doing according to them. And you'd have the best free consultancy you've had in the past years because they will tell you with joy. They're being empowered to talk to people above and bosses and give their point of view when most likely they've been dying to do that, but they were never approached to do it. Ask for their feedback and listen to it. There's no time to rebuttal and say no, but yes, no, because no. You ask, they're telling you. So be ready to take it. Take notes and act upon it. If, and that's usually the case, they tell you about how your department is working, how this person is toxic, and everybody concurs to the same conclusion, well, you have to get rid of that person. As a leader, you have to make the difficult decision after you validate it with other people if you might. But if a lot of people say that this person is this way, it's usually because they are that way. A lot of companies don't have the courage to do that, especially if it's somebody higher up, because you have the support, you have this and this, and they may act, negatively if ever they find out. Okay. Well, then you have good employees leaving the ship because of one person. So make that courageous decision, and you see your company will be better off that way. Once you ask them for feedback, after you've, identified them, you have to look into how to reward them. So you have to know your personnel enough to know who likes public recognition, who doesn't like public recognition, who like to be thanked in private, but reward them. Not everybody likes money, but everyone likes recognition. You do something good and some people come and tell you, you know what, good job. When you recognize someone, do it in a specific way. Not say good job, good job. Okay, good job for everybody can say good job. Not everyone can say that, but the people that do, the easiest is to say good job. There's a difference between good job and you did amazing when you took care of that customer complaint that you did yesterday. I listened to the call. You owned up to the problem. You promised her a call back. You called her back today as you said you would. I really like the ownership you took for that situation. Specific. Everybody can be general, not everybody can be specific. Only the people that pay attention and that really care about what you're doing are going to be specific. So be one of them. And people are going to appreciate you even more because you did that. So recognition. Our workforce is changing now and shifting from generation X. Used to be the boomers are retired, almost all of them are. Shifting to Gen X, like us, Y, and now we're on to Gen Z, or Generation Z for people in the US. Those young people, they're one of a kind, because we have some of them in our households for those parents that have teenagers in their house. They're different. They've been most likely impacted by COVID in a different way than we were, us older people, than they are. They have a certain way of seeing things. But because they're the next generation that's going to be in power, the next generation that's going to take care of us, you can't ignore them and just say, oh, they're this way, or they're this and that. No, they're the next ones. So how do they function? How do they think? Because they're your next workforce. I give you another example that we encountered when I was in the call center industry for 20 plus years, and 15 of them managing people directly in the front line. We were hiring, and it was difficult enough to hire in Montreal in the call center industry because there's a lot of competition for a small territory. So if you have a class of 16 that you want to fill, well, HR is having usually a hard time filling those 16 spots. And once they're filled, well, you want to go on with the training, get them up and running so they can take calls because there's not enough people power. And then you have calls waiting and customers waiting with everything that's not good with that. So you want people to be up and running and just join the ranks of the workforce so people have less waiting time on the phones. But at the first time we were asked, say, okay, you come in, you're within probation, 90 days probation. One thing we're not going to negotiate on is attendance and lates and absences, but mostly lates. And the direction was at the time, that was like, what, maybe 15, almost even 20 years ago. Let's say 15 years ago. That if you're late, The first time during your three month probation, it's a verbal warning. A second late is a written warning. The third late was a termination of employment. You're out of a job for being late 3 times during your probation. The time that you were supposed to be the most perfect in your career, you come in late 3 times, you're out. Were you dealing with young people at the time that it's their first or second job, still living with their parents, don't necessarily need the money for most of them? And I'm talking like 15 years ago, so imagine what it would be today with this generation. And that generation was, sometimes somebody would come in late and say, you know what, I was late only by 5 minutes. Why are you talking to me? What are you talking to me for? I was only late by 5 minutes. They didn't do anything wrong, according to them. And then you would see in a class of 16, 3/4 of them would have been late in the first month, at least once, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. So if you extend it to the whole probation period, which was 90 days, 3 months, you would have to get rid of everybody, or most. You'd have maybe one or two left. Can't fire everyone. You just cannot fire everyone. Somebody has to be there to take the calls. If you have to fire 1 out of 16, it's that one that has a problem. If you have to fire 15 out of 16, it's you, the employer, that has a problem. So we had to soften our stance back then and say, okay, we're not going to fire everybody after three lates. And we were asked as leaders to have conversations and understanding and probing and what happened and what can we do to help. We never did that before, because before we could afford to not do that, and we still would have a full class. The dynamic has changed, and we had to adapt, and we did. So we had conversations with people and asked them, well, what was the reason for the late? Well, my alarm didn't ring. Well, I didn't have change when I stepped onto the bus. Any excuse is a good one. You move your paradigm from, hey, I am telling you, I am bossing you around, next time there's going to be this. It was just negative consequences after one and another. And we went from that to, how can you help us? Help us. We're asking you for help. We're asking you to come in and be on time, because when you're not, your friend who is on time takes more call because of you. And it's an approach that worked better than just being negative and taking away stuff. And that's the overall approach. The reward approach, now more than ever, works better than the I'm taking away, I'm punishing you approach. And I have another example, if ever we needed one, to prove it. And I don't need to go any further than in my household. I have teenage kids that in the previous years, we were educating them with the method that I just described. If you don't do this, we're taking away your phone. If you don't do this, we're cutting the internet. Very negative. Did it work? Not all the time. It also brought tension in the household. When that kid left your household because you took away the phone, well, he's angry, he's not happy, and blah, blah, blah. And you say, well, I was raised the same way, but you were not raised in the same environment, right? When that kid leaves the household and goes to school, he is in a rewards program constantly. He's being given a medal because he put on his winter coat on time to go to recess. And knowing that your method, okay, it might be working, but it doesn't look like it's the best one. You have to be humble enough to say, you know what, okay, maybe I don't have the best one. Maybe the one I thought was the best one is not the best in this context, What else is out there? What did they do in school? And you ask them, okay, what does the teacher? And they come back with these, whether it's a medal, they get they get things for doing anything, basically, things they're supposed to do. Whereas in our culture, we don't reward you for something you're supposed to do. Here you get rewarded for something you're supposed to do. Oh, that's a big shift. And now you look at something different. You know, let me take a page out of this book. And I started something that I would have never thought would work. Is my wife and I asked our kids and say, you know what, make a list of things you'd like to have in the house in terms of privileges. Put it on a piece of paper. We'd sit down as parents, would read it, would vet it, make sure there's not anything funny and funky, right? And then you empower those kids to say, well, I would like to play on the PS till 4 in the morning, one day of the weekend. I'd like to drink a whole can of Coke on the Wednesday evening, even if I have school the next day. I'd like to invite my friends over without giving you a 2 or 3 weeks notice. I want to do it like the day before, 2 days before, over the weekend. Things like that, you know, maybe not seemed important to us, but was to them. Okay, put it together, we vet it, make sure, okay, we remove anything we didn't want. Well, although there was not a lot of things to be removed, and said, okay, we're going to give a dollar value to each of these items on the list so you can buy them. And you're going to be able to buy them with money. We're going to give you, not real money, virtual money. I took a set of cards, you know, 52 cards, and I wrote on them $1, $2, $5, $10. That was the currency. And then my wife and I made a list of privileges, not privileges, of duties. That every time you accomplish those duties or chores, you would get paid in virtual money. And then that money would serve for you to buy the privileges that you wanted in the first place. So if you brought good grades, you would get a lot of money for that. If you anything we'd like to see as a behavior, we put a lot of virtual money in that because it was usually harder to achieve. So for example, I had a hard time waking up my son in the morning because he would come, wake him up, go do things, come back 15 minutes again later, he's still in the bed. Okay, fine. And then hasn't brushed yet. You had to micromanage him and you're not doing your things because you have to follow up on him. Tried every method, didn't work. When I put on that list that if I wake you up, my friend, first time you get up, you get $5. You go brush your teeth, you put lotion on, you know, your face, whatever you're supposed to do, be clean, you get $10. You finish your breakfast, because I had a hard time getting him to eat. You finish your breakfast, you get $20. You put on your coat. He had a bus at 7:20. We had to leave the house at 7:15. It was just around the block, not too far. But how many times did we find ourselves 7:17, 18, 19? You haven't left the house yet. You're running for the bus and then he stops to pick you up because he was already leaving. Sometimes he would have already left and you had to come back, take the car, go, give him a lift to school. The day I put you getting this, if I wake you up, you touch him in the morning, say, dude, get up, he just gets up. No questions asked. Puts on his clothes, go brush his teeth, and eats the whole breakfast, puts on his winter coat with his gloves, everything, kashku. He was supposed to come see me at 7:15 so we can leave to catch the 7:20 bus. Before, I was going to see him at 7:18, see where he was at. Now, he's coming in my bedroom or in my office, all dressed, boots on, everything ready, 7:10 or 7:15 at the latest. And in my head, I'm like, why? How did I not do this sooner? Well, that's the people we're dealing with now. That's the next generation. That's how you can retain them. They play and they leave the same way they play their games. It's all about achieving a level. Once you achieve a level, you're one of the few and you want to achieve the next level. So if you want them to perform at work and you don't want them leaving after 2 months, because they wouldn't care leaving you after 6 months or even 2 months if they don't recognize themselves in your company, if they feel like they're not being treated at their worth, they would just leave and go work for somebody else. It's not us that was there for like 20, 30 years. No, that's over. So you have a high interest of retaining them. Give them tasks that when they complete it, it's like a level in their games. And they unlock a certain level next. That's how you're going to keep them entertained. Because they want to be entertained. They spend a majority of their life playing games in the virtual world. And some of them still live today, a lot of them at least, in majority, in the virtual world. And if it was only 1% of the workforce, you could say, I'll ignore them. They're too complicated. No, they're the majority of the workforce. We are going to have to adapt to them. They have the power because they are outnumbering everybody else in today's workforce. So that's how you can retain talent, whether it's in a job environment or in a different environment, things that I've lived. And hopefully they were of use. If you found it interesting and you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe, share around you, put in the comments, interact if you want to have a discussion. If you want me to talk about other subjects that I haven't brushed up yet on, let me know. And if I have the competency, I'll discuss it here. If I don't, I'll sure say I don't. But it was a pleasure chatting with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in another video, and then don't hesitate to give me feedback. Till next time, have a good one, everyone.